I'm Tom Grossi, a New York City comedian and diehard Green Bay Packers fan for almost 20 years.
It is caught for the win. Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. A game ender for the Packers.
In 2015, I created a podcast where each week I talk to fans from opposing teams to share their story and to get yelled at for about an hour for being a Packers fan. Last year, I met amazing people and went to amazing places. And this year, I'm ready to do it all over again.
Make no mistake about it, I will be remembered as a Packer.
Enjoy the show. Packers Nation, Grossi Posse. How we doing? Welcome to Packcast, the podcast where you don't need to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help if you just love feeling sad all the time. I'm your host, Tom Grossi, and I didn't want to start this out as how the past 3 weeks have started out, which is just cold, calculating, and depressing. So I figured instead of just being sad and mopey about our fourth loss in a row, I'm going to fake it. I am going to fake it till I make it. So anybody randomly stumbling upon this video is going to think I'm the happiest person in the world. But really, I'm dead inside. Let's talk about the Packers. Not much to talk about in that they lost 42-24 against the Washington Redskins on Sunday Night Football, dropping 4 in a row. And they are now currently 4-6 on the season. Now, let's get this right out of the way. Do I think the Packers are done for the year? The optimist in me is not ready to stick a fork in it. And the only reason being is because I don't think we're going to get a wild card position. I think that ship has sailed. The only hope that the Packers have is that the rest of the division begins to crumble as they had been doing, except, of course, on Sunday, in which the Vikings and the Lions both won. Let's look at the reality of the situation. Lions and Vikings, they are playing on Thanksgiving. One of those teams is going to be 7-4. So there's still plenty of football left to be played. Right now, there's 6 games left. And we just have to hope that they implode. And thinking about the Lions and the Vikings and how they've been playing, is it going to be tough? Is it going to be difficult? Is it not likely? Absolutely. But again, what else is there to do? So I'm not ready to be like, okay, we're done. I have no investment for the rest of the season because I don't think we're at that point just yet. This isn't just blind faith or blind optimism. I think mathematically we aren't eliminated from the playoffs, and I think it's still possible to get in there. But before we start looking at the future, let's look at the very near past, in which the Packers, over the past 4 games, have given up 153 points. That is not an Aaron Rodgers problem. That is not an offense problem. That's not a Mike McCarthy problem. That's a defense problem. 153 points over 4 games. You cannot win, or it is very difficult to win when your defense gives you up 153 points. Like, just wrap your head around that number. Rodgers has been playing well. He did well last night. You know, he got 26 for 41, 351 for 3 TDs, no picks again. He missed a couple throws, sure, but the guy is not losing us the football game. In fact, the only reason we're in the football game is because of Aaron Rodgers, because yet again, he is our number 1 rusher with 33 yards. So people are kind of moving off the Aaron Rodgers hate train, which is good, but not everybody. And the reason not everybody is because I read an article this weekend that was talking about Aaron Rodgers' personal family life. Now, if you don't know about his family life, that's good. You're a normal person. If you do, his brother was on the most recent season of The Bachelorette. I know because of all the articles, and my wife made me watch The Bachelorette. And so I watched this And spoilers if you're not caught up on the last season, but his brother does win. And Aaron Rodgers is actually brought up in the season throughout the year and how they don't have a relationship and they don't talk and yada, yada, yada. I stopped caring. And there was actually some articles that came out saying that the reason why Aaron might not be playing well is because he doesn't really have a family life. And he didn't go to his grandfather's funeral. His parents don't have his cell phone number. That kind of annoys me. I'm not gonna lie, and I don't know if this is just because I'm a Packers fan, because I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan, but who cares? Like if you care about Aaron Rodgers' personal family life, like please let me know, and please let me know why you care, because I don't care, and the guy has been playing good football, and I don't think his personal family life, unless you have an issue in the NFL where there's an issue of domestic violence, which is obviously not the case, who cares about his family life or lack thereof? The guy is a football player. The guy's a good person. Watch him play football and have a nice day. But I think it's very foolish of anybody to blame it on his family life. But that's another issue. Looking at Mike McCarthy, Ted Thompson, kind of on the hot seat. Dom Capers, I know Packers fans have wanted to get rid of him for years upon years. If anyone's going to get let go this year, I mean, again, depending, and I talked about this last week, depending on how bad it really gets. Like, if we lose the rest of our games, I think anybody's job is potentially up for grabs or up to be lost. But I mean, looking at that defense, and again, we have a lot of injuries. It's very easy to kind of refute the injuries and not acknowledge the injuries, but we do have a lot of them, and they are a lot worse than the 2010 season, which we went on a run and won a damn Super Bowl. Very, very different, much, much worse. And the fact that we don't have a running game. So I would think Capers, if there's anybody, because those delayed blitzes, man, those were horrid. Like, those were terrible. The defense, Kirk Cousins literally did whatever he wanted to that defense. And it was just long ball after long ball. He went for 21 for 30, only missed 9 throws, 375 yards, 3 TDs. You also had Kelly, who ran on us for 24 attempts, 137 yards, and 3 TDs. So much for that run defense. Garcon had a big night, 6 for 116, 1 TD. And Crowder, only 3 catches, but he had 102 yards and a TD, and he was very close to getting a second one. So this is a defensive problem that has emerged, because it seems like whenever our offense is starting to click, our defense is just dead. Like, you're just poking it with a stick and it's dead. Or it's the other way around, like how the beginning of the season started. So, I mean, the Packers got within one score several times. They were never really able to close the gap. We were shut out in the first and the third quarter. Again, there was a very slow, sluggish start, but the defense held the Redskins in the beginning as well until like the last 3 minutes of the first quarter. So I was a little optimistic, and then the floodgates open, and Kirk Cousins was like, "How you like me now?" And so, I mean, like, my hat's off to the Redskins. Jared Cook came back from injury. He had a big night. That's like the one silver lining. He fumbled, but 6 for 105, 1 TD. Cobb, 3 for 84. Devontae was a little bit quieter. But, I mean, this defense is abysmal right now. It helped that Matthews was back. We were able to get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. But Kirk Cousins gets rid of the ball very quickly. And so, you know, we knew that this was going to be a tough match. I had a prediction, and so did the Redskins fan, that this was going to be a shootout. And that's essentially what it came into. Because the third and fourth quarter was just disgusting. I mean, the fourth quarter was literally just bomb for bomb. Aaron Rodgers drove it down the field, and every time I was like, yay, winning. And then it was like, oh, no, they scored in 45 seconds. So this is a defensive problem. And McCarthy, you know, comes out and you listen to McCarthy and you listen to Aaron Rodgers in the post-game like interviews, and there's nothing they can really say anymore. And there was a question last night that said, like, do you think you can win with the personnel that you have? And McCarthy said, yes, you know, I believe in these, a great group of guys, yada, 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 yada. I mean, you can only point the fingers so many times, and like, it's lack of energy. Everyone went on the lack of energy train. Aaron Rodgers was missing some throws. Everyone jumped on him. Now it's the defense. Now everyone's on McCarthy. Everyone's on Thompson. I This is bad, and as McCarthy says, like, our asses are against the wall, and it totally is true. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think we're gonna win out. I don't see this team going 10-6 realistically. You have a tough Monday night game against the Eagles coming up. Carson Wentz is a good quarterback. I can see him having a field day with the defense that we have currently on the field. Then we have the Texans, which I think is a winnable game. But the game that scares me probably the most is the Seahawks game, because if we show up the way we've been showing up for the past 4 weeks, and the Seahawks show up the way that they've been playing the past 4 weeks, this is going to get ugly very quickly. But again, we also have a tendency to play good teams well and bad teams not so well. So, I mean, this is sad. It sucks. I hate watching my team lose. I hate watching them struggle. But I think this is also. This is where it tests you. The Packers fans, listen, we've had a really, really nice run of constantly going to the playoffs, constantly being in contention, and this is what separates the real fans from the fake ones or the bandwagon ones. And it's not that you can't criticize your team. Listen, you can criticize your team till the cow comes home. It is your right as a person and as a fan to do that. However, the idea of like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to watch them anymore. I don't like them anymore. Listen, you're an observer. That's all you can do. I mean, unless you're at the game, you can just make more noise. So that was tough. But the one thing I wanted to leave off on this, there was one thing that pissed me off even more than the loss, and there's conflicting reports. I can't state this as fact, but again, there are reports. So you saw last night, near the very, very end of the game, Pierre Garcon rips a cheesehead in half from one of the fans. And now the story that I have read is that it was a Packers fan. He was there. Pierre Garcon was like mentioning to like give him the cheesehead. He didn't want to. Eventually, a bunch of Redskins fans took the cheesehead from him, threw it to Pierre Garcon, and he ripped it in half. Now, before we even get to that, I've had that happen when I've gone to football games. When I was 16, I went to a Buffalo Bills game. Obviously, it was in Buffalo. I've had my cheese head knocked off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've had fans curse at me, things like that. And I understand it's part of the game. It is what it is. But if this is true, in which fans took the cheese head, threw it into Garcon, and Garcon literally ripped it up in front of him, I actually have a really big problem with that. As football fans, like, we could be the most vile, terrible human beings. Very, very true. But again, that doesn't give you a right as a player to retaliate in any way, shape, or form, especially when those cheeseheads cost money. And for you, Pierre Garcon, to do that, I kind of gotta ask, like, where do you get off? And I mean, listen, I looked at your stats. That was your second TD this year. The most you've ever had in a career in one season is 6. You had one season that was over 1,000 yards. You are irrelevant. You are going to make more money in a season than I am probably going to make in a lifetime. And that doesn't really excuse you being an asshole. I'm kind of just calling it as it is that if I was a Packer fan, and this goes for any fan, and I went to a game and a player, without my permission, consent, whatever you want to call it, ripped up something that I spent my money on, you're an asshole. Like, that's just the way that it is. And I hope he's fined, and that this has been an issue, not for Pierre Garcon, but this has been an issue like at behest of players ripping up signs and things like that, and they have gotten fined before. So, and this is, I would be saying this even if I was not a Packers fan, because if a Vikings, Lions, or Bears fan came into Lambeau Field and a player ripped apart something of theirs, then they're an asshole. So, I'm sorry for saying asshole so much, but Pierre Garcon, you're an asshole. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com. That's TomGrossi Comedy. Or at Tom Grossi Comedy on Twitter. You can follow us on Facebook, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Packcast, Packast. We post 2 episodes a week. Of course, one goes on YouTube, which is a Tuesday episode. This Thursday, we will have an interview with an Eagles fan, and I reached out to the subreddit today, actually, and they were rabid, in which a lot of people responded and applied to be on the show. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. If you're a Packers fan, listen, don't give up hope. This is your team. This is the team that you've stuck with for quite some time. And even if we lose next week, even if we lose the rest of the game, like the rest of the games this season, we're still going to be Packers fans. We're still going to have hope when it comes into the offseason. We're still going to have hope next season. That's not going to change. So don't you change. And as always, go Pack Go.